Recently, I've learned a new leadership skill called vulnerability from the book Daring Greatly: How the Courage to be Vulnerable Transforms the Way We Live, Love, Parent and Lead. One important underlying assumption to learn this skill, which is connection. Connection underpins the meaning of our lives. On page 7 of the book, connection is why we're here. We are hardwired to connect with others. It's what gives purpose and meaning to our lives, and without it, there is suffering. And shame is the enemy to connections. On page 67 of the book, it defines shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we're flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Then, vulnerability is the way to combat shame. It's defined as the uncertainty, risk, and exposure. Under vulnerability, there are two sub-skills, empathy and courage. To my understanding, as a leader, you have to understand that everyone's unique and having his or her own specialties and difficulties. But understand that those elements are bit by bit building up one's identity, no matter weak or strong. By then, you develop empathy. Also, for courage, a person needs a huge amount of courage to be vulnerable in front of others, which in other words, being emotionally exposed and not having the entire control of his or her life. By having these two skills, a person can build positive relationships with others and build strong teams as leaders. The project is called the Pride Path. Its aim is to build the cultural identities in this indigenous students studying year 9 to 12, studying at Armadale Senior High School, and we'll be partnering indigenous rangers and the elders in their local communities so they can share their life stories and also teaching the students traditional skills of their culture. Team leaders can apply the skill vulnerability in different phases in the project. For example, in the planning phase, the leader will be able to identify team members' characteristics and capacities so not to make them feel uncomfortable in situations. For example, the team leader will avoid pushing a shy team member to represent them in the pitch to express opinions, because that will be excruciating for the shy team member to be under such a tremendous pressure by being questioned by the board of committees. Instead, the team leader might recommend an outgoing team member to be responsible for the task. No matter in what phase in the project, as long as it involves people, it involves vulnerability, the team leader will be devoted to provide a safe space and construct a shameless environment for team members or participants to learn and build positive relationships with each other without being judged. For example, in the planning phase, team members will be encouraged to be brutally honest and courageous to express their opinions or recommendations in every decision making to ensure every piece of opinion will be respected. Also, in the implementation phase, for example, Yanning sessions, students will be encouraged to express their feelings or even sharing their traumatic experience by assuring them this is a safe space that they can share everything, share the deepest thoughts in their mind, and not forcing anyone to speak if they don't want to. By doing so, project team members and students will be able to truly and bravely embrace their vulnerability, as they could recognize vulnerability is part of their identities, and more importantly, not to fear to be disconnected to the people they care about. If I have to choose one leadership skill to work on to be a better leader in my project, I'll choose courage. To be honest, I'm lacking courage in my life. I find it hard to accept my weaknesses. I try to be perfect from others' point of view. As the book says, imperfect. Perfectionism is one of the common ways to avoid recognizing your own vulnerability. And what I've done was always just showcasing the good aspects in my life on the internet. I always try to put only the good parts onto my Instagram. For example, the big lifts I did last week, but not telling others the difficulties I encounter in my daily life. I'm also afraid of failing, very afraid of that. I always had insomnia before every badminton tournament, and yeah, I never had a good sleep before competitions. I'm also, apart from failing, I'm also scared to be different. Yeah, as easy as I'm afraid of asking questions in classes, and yeah, I think those are the reasons that hindering me from performing 100% my full effort every time. I've come up with 3 ways to improve, and they have one thing in common, which is to expose myself under pressure, to address my vulnerability directly. So the first one would be entering badminton competition like before, but this time will be different because I won't be caring the result. I'm not focusing on disappointment from others, but I'll just be focusing the joy I have when playing badminton, the sports I love. Secondly, I will force myself to ask at least one question in every class I attend. Is to practice my courage and also keeping myself focused throughout the class. I will grade down to maybe just asking one question after class. Then as I get more familiarized, then I'll try to raise my hand in class. And last but not least, I'll try to tackle my childhood trauma. I'll attend public speaking class, which is called Speechcraft courses in Perth City, 2 hours every week, and it does not require any experience. Participants will be practicing and preparing their public speaking in a relaxed atmosphere, and by that I hope I will have a great transformation and great development on my confidence afterwards. We'll see.